Greetings, y'all. This is a follow-up video to part one of creativity on the road and how to manage that process as a nomad. I shared how the previous year and a half, kind of waiting for the muse to hit me and help show me the way to continue the avenues of creative expression that I had explored while still in Sticks and Bricks, and see how I could adapt those. I had set up an art journal where anything and everything is open game, and trying out using the same medium that I had before on 11 by 17 watercolor panels, basically clippings from art journaling magazines, and also new mediums being heat shrink connectors and wire ferrules. So how was that going to go actually being on the road, adapting to smaller space, less room, fewer supplies, and would it still satisfy me enough to continue doing it? I had a great chance to practice in the preamble of the epic trip this spring and summer my partner and I are going to take through the great Midwest. So I think it was a fair, It was a fair trial of what I had laid out in my temporary Sticks and Bricks to see how that was all going to work. And now I'm following up, being accountable to how that actually went, and to making any modifications to what I experienced to make it more successful, if that's possible, for that spring and summer jaunt. Our preamble was in Pahrump, Nevada. Let's see how loud that fan is. That's not bad, so I'm going to leave it on because it's a little warm in here. I am in the Cocoon, which is the name of the minivan that I'm sharing with my partner while we're out on our epic adventure. And I thought I would share how I'm accomplishing this creativity thing on the road. I've been working on my art journal today and yesterday and the day before. Really enjoying that process, and it's going better than I thought it could. There's the camera. Of the projects that I started before we got on the road, the beading, the heat connector thing, and the art journaling. The art journaling is definitely what's been grabbing me the most, so I've just been following that impulse and pouring things onto the pages. When it gets into the 80s and above, I wear a bag of ice on my head, and the hat keeps it in place. I'm still limiting myself to this particular journal, to that one container of images that I've clipped from art journaling magazines, and a pot of decoupage, adhesive, glue, whatever that stuff is. I use an IKEA tray as my flat surface, and I just grabbed this flyer booklet thing from the recycling pile, and I use that to brush on adhesive to the images that I use. Here's the journal, and it's gonna be ridiculously thick when I'm done with it, but I can't wait to see what that looks like. And then here's the pile of images that I have at my disposal in the tones that I like. I don't use red, navy blue. Just get rid of all that stuff and keep the rest. Here's a small box of pens and pencils that I've allowed myself to keep, and an eraser. Somewhere there's a pencil sharpener too. And here's the container of the connector stuff. Here's my brush for the adhesive and some water. And this is the adhesive that I like to use because it doesn't cause things to smear. However, there's a little issue with this. I left it out in freezing temperatures over the winter, and there's this huge blob of solid frozen stuff. So I threw some water in there and shook it up, and we'll see how that works. This is a spread that I did with that watered down version of the adhesive, and it seems to be okay. It's not coming off the page. It is definitely textured because of air bubbles, but you gotta do what you gotta do when you're on the road. One of the reasons I wanted to start this journal was to keep track of boondocking spots that I hear about or that I experience myself. Not sure if I like what's happening here with my handwriting. It's taking up a lot of room, but I'm gonna allow myself to keep going and see if it grows into something that I do like. Here's a spread I worked on today, just grabbing basically leftover clippings from previous spreads, which is basically how these happened. I just noticed, there's some interesting stuff here. Let's start using those up and see what happens. I'm reading Gabor Mate's latest book, The Myth of Normal. And I'm a big fan of his. I would credit him with being the biggest source of information for me
on why people act the way that they do and what we can do about it if we want to.
So I'm gathering quotes, and again, my handwriting, I don't know about this. We'll see how that evolves as well. I really like how this turned out. Pretty much like how this turned out. We'll see if I decide to add anything to it. I really like the contrast of the sky blue and the fuchsia and the other rest of the palette of blues on that page. Started keeping track of where we're going on this calendar. That may or may not continue. It might not be in as much detail as I'd really like. But again, it's all an experiment.
That frozen pot of stuff just wasn't cutting it, so I got some Mod Podge. The handwriting just had to go, so I tried an alternative method of printing the quotes on a separate piece of paper and then gluing that into a spread. That feature on the left side, I've seen it referred to as a Dutch door in the journaling world, and I really like how that turned out. Nope, those pages just had to go, and I'm using Google Keep to keep track of boondocking spots. One of the great benefits of being a nomad is the feeling of decompressing from everything in organized society that drives you crazy. Being on your own time frame and your own schedule allows your nervous system to settle and relax, and you can remember what it is that you really like to do. And then give yourself the time and the space to do it. And then you can start to accrue the benefits of practicing that hobby, interest, art of your choice. Hope you enjoyed that part 2 of Creativity on the Road. As soon as we accomplish some upgrades and maintenance on our vehicles, we are getting out there on the epic journey. And I cannot wait to see what happens.